there like a song that we sing at the beginning, or do we just act casual, or what?
Ooh, we should sing a song. That'd be
What if
fun.
what if right before the stream I sent everybody lyrics to a 5-minute song that we all had to sing together live on stream?
Minutes.
DevRel karaoke is the bomb.
With like no
There we
music
go.
associated, so we don't know what the tune is.
Yes. Yeah. And actually everyone should sing it in their own interpretation one by one.
Love
by
it.
themselves. I think
No, all at once.
That's the whole live stream.
Hollow.
right?
Yeah.
That is the whole live stream.
Honestly, I would tune in at least for a couple minutes of that. Like I feel like that'd be pretty entertaining.
DevRel karaoke.
I'm a horrible singer, so
Oh, same.
yeah.
That's like one skill I wish I had, because I love to sing. I just sing
Same.
horribly, so it's not beneficial for
But you
anyone
can
else.
rap, so that's like a
Yeah, James, we've all heard it.
I can rap. That's a different skill. I did sneak that into a conversation with a coworker the other day, because he said like on his 2025 one of his goals was to make more music, and I was like, tell me more. And so he sent me one of his songs, which was amazing. And then I sent him a couple of my things.
Nice.
Maybe we'll be able to turn that into some sort of content.
I love
That's
it.
super cool.
I don't know if we see which. I guess Tessa, that's probably your LinkedIn channel. Hello,
Yeah.
Kevin, by the way. Okay.
It might be Lawrence's. Lawrence has LinkedIn connected too. That's where the devs are nowadays, is on LinkedIn.
Can we switch from private chat to general chat? Excuse me. Or no?
You should. I think you should just like private chat. I think only pops up in the private chat window in the bottom leftish, but the chat on the right should just be public.
Yeah, it won't let me type. All good.
Oh, it's a type.
Oh, that's boring.
Yeah,
Wonder if you can open
I
it.
You
can't.
just have to respond out loud.
I want to do some
Yo,
typing.
Kevin.
Come on.
Yeah,
Yo.
That's
I
all
know.
good. No biggie. No biggie.
I'm usually behind the scenes, like typing while I'm listening too.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. There's so many channels connected that you could literally comment from all the different places and still not catch people because they're commenting on the other platform.
Absolutely.
Yeah, which is a good point to call out that we're on like multiple channels. So
Yes.
if anybody hears us respond to comments that you don't see, go and follow every social channel that each one of us has and open up each tab at the same time and monitor chat that way. That's the easiest way to do it.
This is
That's
the
the easiest way.
four
We
monitor
will not
line.
be reading out the questions out loud. We'll just be answering them.
I think that's how it works.
Yeah.
Oh,
Here's
the world
a-
we live in.
That's a self-promotion tip, by the way.
I'll take it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will take
What's
it.
up? LinkedIn's the most active this morning. Well, we'll take up the hour. I think we have hard stops at the hour for at least one or two of us, so we will plan on that. Welcome everybody.
also-
Yeah.
Not to jump in, not to interrupt. I set up a roundtable in the Built for Devs hub. And so if folks do want to ask questions after, I know that y'all might have to go. I can stick around and sort of just like guide a conversation where folks can kind of share notes. So that'll be an hour long after this session as well. So
Sweet.
I'll be
Nice.
hanging in the hub.
Love that. That's cool. See, that was the formal thing. I asked you if you wanted to like make sure people knew. It's good.
Well, okay, sorry. They know. Okay, now they've been told that.
Now
That's
they
it. No more formal things.
Now they know. What is welcome Jessica Codes, Braden, and D Thompson. What's going on, y'all? What does paired mean in the Twitch icon? Does that mean they're like
Multiple people are subscribed to us. So like they're subscribed to more than one of us, basically.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so they followed the advice to follow all the chats on all the platforms across all.
Maybe.
Friends
Maybe.
and friends.
That's right.
Yes.
All right,
all the
what's up,
friends.
Nikki T?
Yeah.
Cool. Well, we can officially get started. I'll introduce myself really quickly. I'm James Q Quick. I always feel so douchey saying that, but it's like an SEO thing, and I feel so awkward every time, but I still say it. But the majority of my career has been in DevRel, developer relations, developer experience, that sort of stuff. Like 7 or 8 out of 10 or 11 professional years of my career is that, and it's a combination of a lot of things that we'll talk about. And I just wanted to have some of my favorite people come on to talk about their experience in that world and all the different responsibilities that we have, the context switching, the travel. Is it glamorous? Is it not as glamorous as it seems? Like all the things. And I think we've got a pretty awesome lineup of people. And so what I'll do is I'll kind of facilitate a panel with the 4 guests that we have here. and take questions and comments in the chat too. So if you have questions or things that you want to ask, feel free to put those in the chat. If you want to ask to a specific person, specify that as well. Otherwise, we'll just kind of go through and try to include as much as we can from the chat as we go along. Everyone's Twitch handles. I don't know. Do we have a great way to share? All right. So when I'll go one by one, do brief introductions. When you do that, if you have a Twitch handle, share it, and then that ought to help. And I am James Q Quick on mine. So Tessa, you're in top left. For me, do you want to go first?
Yeah. Tessa Creasel. I've honestly been in DevRel for probably almost 10 years as well, out of my 15-year career. Started by building a community of Guitar Hero, other kinds of nerds that love to play video games 15 years ago. So I've been building developer communities since day one, and it feels like what I was like put on this earth to do. I have Built for Dev, which is now a company that I guess you can call as like a DevRel agency, but it's more of a developer product, bring that beauty to life so that developers love it agency. But like, I don't know how you call it that. So I'm Tessa K22 on Twitch as well as pretty much everywhere else.
Sweet. Sarah, do you want to go next?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Sarah Guthels. I'm Dr. Guthels on every platform. Speaking of like SEO, James, it sounds so like, I don't know, so I always have doctor in there, but whatever. I've been doing like developer education. Oh gosh, I have to do math for about 15 years now. It started with in undergrad, actually, so maybe a little more than 15 years. Maybe like 17, 18 years. I did computer science for all my degrees, but my focus in undergrad and in grad school for research was education. So teaching all the way from like 5-year-olds how to code all the way to professional developers who are learning new frameworks and tools and stuff like that. Other than that, I had like a startup where we taught kids to code by building Minecraft mods before Microsoft acquired them. I was an engineering manager at GitHub before Microsoft acquired them. There's a theme. I was an advocate at Microsoft, but now I lead DevRel at Sentry, and I'm based out of Washington State.
Love it. And I feel like there's a lot of people in this situation. We have almost overlap, like similar roles, although they had changed at Microsoft, but at different times.
Yeah,
I feel like there's a bunch of people that have kind of gone through like at some point or another a similar type role at Microsoft.
Definitely.
Yeah. Cap, you have a brand new role, which I'm excited to like specifically ask you when we get into it, like difference between things you were doing, things that you're doing now, which is more community focused. So I'd love to like talk about that when we get into it. But do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. So hi everyone. I'm Cap. You will probably also see Kapehe around. Either one, but Cap is good. I live in Denver. It's snowing today. Got about 2 inches, but it's like a fluffy snow. It's like you want to play in it. So but yeah, I've been in DevRel for about 7 years now, and it's more like DevRel by different names. That's like the beauty of DevRel is like we all have kind of like different titles, and we're all kind of like going for the same goal. And yeah, I just started at Vercel a couple months ago, and I am leading the developer community there. And yeah,
so cool. And fun fact, we worked together for 6 months. When I joined Auth0,
yeah.
maybe 6, like probably less.
We were supposed to do a booth for Auth0 together
at React,
and then COVID hit, and it was canceled. Yeah.
Yep. I was also supposed to go on a family trip, speak at a conference in Prague, and make this big family trip with my wife's side of the family, who her mother was born in Germany. We were going to do like this whole family tour. We had this amazing trip planned out, and COVID. So
yep,
that was fun.
Oh, and I mean, James, you and I have known each other for 5, 6 years, 7 years, and we just met each other last October for the first time in person at NextCon.
I know. Yeah, COVID ruined a lot of meeting in person opportunities.
Yeah, but now it's all coming back. Like I leave for Amsterdam tomorrow, and I'm speaking at Laracon EU, running a Vercel Amsterdam meetup out there. So like, it's coming back. You know.
No big deal. Casual. Speaking of people I have met in person, Lawrence is local with me. I see JC is in the chat as well on LinkedIn, who's also one of our Memphis community members. Lawrence, welcome. Do you want to tell people who you are and what you do?
Sure thing. Hey, everybody, I'm Lawrence Lockhart. I am a midlife career changer. I came into the world of tech after getting absolutely worn out from flipping burgers. And for those that don't know, a general manager in a fast food joint is a glorified burger flipper. And the only difference when you go to fine dining is you're flipping steaks instead of burgers. At around 7 years ago, I made a transition into tech, largely on the backs of community, meeting some amazing people in person like James Q. Quick, JC Smiley in the chat, Joe Ferguson, Ted Patterson, and others, who opened doors for me, showed me the way, gave me referrals. So I started as a web dev, did that for a year, worked as a full stack dev for 4 years at FedEx. And then when I learned that much of the content and community work I've been doing on my own time for free, you could get paid for, I transitioned into DevRel about 1.5 years ago. You can find me on most platforms at Lawrence Decodes. Yeah.
Nice.
And by the way, James has a thing, Cap, for just getting to know you. And once you really love him, he just moves on somewhere else. Like,
Great.
She left me. She left
That's
me,
true.
first of all. So let's be clear.
Wait, so did Lawrence and James, did you both work together? Because didn't you work at FedEx, James?
Yeah, that was
Okay.
yeah, that was the
Cool.
next fun fact was I was at FedEx, taught a boot camp. Danny Thompson, who's in the chat, was another student, another Memphis community member who's now in Dallas. JC was a TA for that boot camp. Lawrence was a student, finished, and then ended up getting a role at FedEx as an engineer on my team. Not my team, but like our team. And it's funny, Lawrence, I was actually going to continue with you because my conversation internally and to Lois, our manager at the time, was the same thing of like, hey, I've been paying for myself to go speak at conferences, paying for my own travel if I needed to, doing these YouTube videos, like taking this stuff seriously, doing all the things that like you kind of traditionally think about with DevRel. I'm going to go and get paid to do that thing. And that was the exact reason that I made the transition to leave you high and dry, Lawrence. Sorry about that. But it makes me feel a little bit better that you ended up doing the same type of thing. So what was like, tell me more about the thought process of like, these are the things that I'm enjoying doing. I want to make that more of like my actual day-to-day that I get paid for.
Yeah. Interestingly, for me, in spite of being exceptionally shy and introverted, those are different, and I'm both of them, I love helping people. I love seeing people win. I love teaching something and you see the lights in their eyes, like, oh, I get it. And I had some of those moments teaching the boot camp as a TA. So shortly after you were my teacher, by the way, y'all, James is Unc. So I guess y'all heard that. Both Danny Thompson and I were students under James. He's Unc. Forget about the ages. But I was a TA for the same boot camp for 3 different sessions. And when you see a student get that aha moment, that's a dopamine rush. That's endorphins. That's just great feelings. And I want to get more of that. And you get to do that in some capacity in developer relations, right? Whether you're helping somebody with your docs, how to work through your API, you give a talk, you get all this feedback. They're like, tell me more. And how do I get in your open source? That's an opportunity to get those feelings that as an engineer, buckled down 8 hours a day, you and your code, you don't really get them as much. Even if you have a great customer facing product, very often you never see those customers. So that was a big driver for me.
Yeah, that's always been my number one motivator that I didn't know was a motivator. And this is like when I kind of rehearse my elevator pitch or whatever, it's like, I'm a teacher. So if you bring me on your team, I'm going to make your team better overall. Like that's what it comes down to.
That's it.
I'm curious. So Cap at the time, before getting an official DevRel title, you were doing documentation at Auth0. And I think you were kind of looking to make that transition. What was like, what were you doing docs wise? I think that like that sounds pretty straightforward, but maybe a little bit of context on like doing docs. And then what were you thinking you were missing or looking forward to or looking to get into with like a DevRel specific title?
Yeah, so it was like docs, but also like just technical content that I was doing at Auth0. R&D content engineer was the official title. I'm like,
Right, yeah.
Sounds so fancy. But yeah, so I just like, if you're not doing DevRel and there's like because there was no opportunity at Auth0 to like move into that, you have to hustle on your own. So I made a YouTube channel and I started just making videos and made my Twitter like more like DevRel-ish, like tips and tricks and like what I've learned and here's how I built this and just kind of like building in public. So I kind of just built my resume, my DevRel resume on the side. And so when Sanity had a position for developer relations, I had like all this like content that wasn't professional. It was just personal growth that I was doing that that helps me get the job. So yeah.
Yep. And this is one of the interesting things we've touched on a little bit. And I forgot that your specific title was developer content engineer. What'd you say?
R&D content engineer.
R&D content engineer. That is like, when we think about DevRel, like that is encompassed in that to me, or at the very least, like developer experience, especially on the doc side. Like my title now is head of developer experience. That very much includes docs, because that's the thing.
Yeah.
We use.
That's why I like include that in like my time of DevRel,
Yeah.
because it's just like by different names, like it's a different title, but it's still like the idea of DevRel. That's why I like when I say 7, it goes back to all 0 days.
Yep, absolutely. So I'm going to kind of keep a tally, and I want to come back to one for you, Cap, in a minute. But talk about docs, talk about content, talk about various forms of content. It could be written content, it could be YouTube videos, it could be whatever. We talked about speaking, and I'll kind of keep a tally of like other things, and we'll come back and revisit those as we go through. Sarah, was DevRel something you knew about? Is that something you like? Were you looking for it? Did you go out of your way to start there? Or did you just kind of like step into it?
Yeah, good question. No, so I like nowadays I feel like my background is very traditional, but like like most traditional, but like not the norm. Because I did like all of my degrees in computer science, and that I don't think is fairly common anymore. But in undergrad, I didn't even discover computer science and coding. Like, you know, I did some MySpace stuff, but it was like copy and paste. I didn't even try to understand it back then. So it wasn't until college, when I was failing out of pre-med and potentially needing to quit university and go to community college because I was paying for it myself. And I, on a whim, took a computer science class. And I got very lucky because my professor was a computer science education researcher and a woman. And she was just an incredible educator. Like, I could not, like, you know, I like to say that like success is being ready for luck, because luck does have to do with it a lot, right? But like I was very lucky to have her. So I fell in love with it because I didn't know what was going on. I was in the lab until all hours trying to get help. The TAs couldn't even figure it out when they had my code and the solution code next to each other, why mine was erroring. That's kind of where my start was. And when after I'd taken a few classes, that professor needed a tutor for her class, and she was redoing the entire curriculum for the first like 3 classes at the university. And so I volunteered. It was a paid position. And so I got to quit my food service job in favor of a computer science tutoring job. And I got to create curriculum and exams and labs and teach the other undergrad tutors how to tutor. And I fell in love, in retrospect, like absolutely have been in love with education my whole entire life. Like my sister's 6 years younger, and I used to, as our play, make her assignments. Like I'd lecture and then I'd give her homework. And then if she not failed, but like if she didn't get it right, I took that as that was my fault for not having the lecture be perfect. Like I was like 10. Okay. So this has been like my DNA. And when I started grad school, I actually was going to do operating systems, because I had this idea of like tech should be easier for the norm, like the normal person, the non-tech person. My mom was a elementary school teacher and was like the best at technology in her whole school, and yet could barely check her email. And I was like, wouldn't it be nice if we had essentially an operating system that like was designed with non-technical people in mind? This was, you know, like I said, like 16 years ago now, 17 years ago. Anyway, so I started doing that a little bit. And then my professor that I had taken that first class from was like, you know, you should apply for this NSF fellowship. And if you get it, you get to basically choose whatever research you want to do. And so I tried for that and I got it. And so I got to switch into computer science education research. So for my PhD, I focused on that, continuing to build curriculum. I built a video game to teach kids how to code, trained teachers how to teach people, trained other professors at the university how to better educate. And then I started my startup. that was all around kind of education and building software to support that, building curriculum, training people. So basically like making videos, writing tutorials, creating curriculum, creating resources, like all of the things that we put under DevRel, I had been doing this whole time. I left my startup and joined GitHub as a contractor to build a GitHub for kids under 13, which was like super fun. Absolutely loved it. But what I didn't know at the time was they were in talks with Microsoft to be acquired. And if you know anything about building things for kids, that's not something that you want to be testing during an acquisition because of all the legalities. So they stopped that project. I was 7 months pregnant and I was like, oh my God, I need a job. Luckily, all of the experience I had was a perfect match for an engineering manager position at GitHub. So I did that for about 2 years. And speaking of like kind of part of your DNA, like being a teacher, like I taught at the university, I taught kids, doing kind of training and being an engineering manager, like it's all the same thing, right? Like it's all enabling someone else to accomplish something in a technical space. And that is my favorite thing to do. So I absolutely love that. But then when GitHub was acquired, I was just kind of like, I've never had DevRel as a formal job in any, capacity. So might as well look. And Microsoft obviously had like a lot of positions. So I actually started as a technical program manager, which was kind of like DevRel-esque, but a little bit different in terms of kind of the team. And then after being there for about a year, they switched us all to officially be advocates. So then I did that. And that was like the first time that I actually had an advocate title was then. But yeah, so it's just kind of been a combination of like, I'm obsessed with building developer tools. I'm obsessed with creating content, docs, training, teaching, videos, etc. All of it has to do with just enabling everyone at any age, at any level to be able to accomplish what they want to accomplish via technology. That's kind of my journey. Sorry, I think I went into way too many details.
No, you're good. Well, what I was going to say, multiple things. I get overwhelmed because there's so many things that I want to relate to. One, yeah. I didn't know anything about computer science until I declared. And then here I am like years later. Yeah. That was just on a whim. Two, a really interesting thing was you felt bad that you felt like your sister, I think, like you didn't teach her well enough. Yeah. I actually am very passionate about this. Like if I'm giving a talk and people aren't paying attention, that's not their fault. That's mine.
Exactly.
Like either I didn't set expectations right for the audience or I'm not doing something that's relevant for them. That's my job to figure out why and what to change. Two, my sister was the person who knew she wanted to be a teacher. She used to line up. She's 9 years older. We're half siblings, only specify because of the age difference. Super close. And she used to line up her stuffed animals and teach them. And I was like, that's weird when I knew that she did that when I was old enough. And now here I am. Like, that's the thing that gets me excited is teaching.
Yeah.
And then Lawrence is reading my notes because this is going to be my next talking point. Thanks, Lawrence, for sharing with everybody. But doing the concept of doing DevRel before your title is DevRel. So I'm going to come back to that one. And then also I'm going to say hi to Christian, Arkar, Brian, Michael, Nikki T, you've been here, Omar. Hola a todos. Hola a ti, Omar. ¿Cómo estás?
También podemos hablar en español.
Oh, también. Yeah.
I do also do streams and videos in Spanish for tech.
Yeah. I need to watch. I actually didn't know that you had content in that. I need to watch that. Yeah. See? The things you learn. But we did get to speak in Spanish
we did.
Last time when we met first in person, which was gosh, when was that?
Like in November of last year.
In Toronto.
October.
Yes. November, yeah, something like that. Yep. Cool. All right. I'm gonna go to Tessa and give me your how did you get into it or why did you get into it? And then I want to go back to the conversation that Lawrence set us up for, which is doing the thing before you are the thing or before you have the title.
Yeah. Gosh, I have so many ways I could start because I can relate to all of you. And I'm just oh, new friends. This is great. I guess Lawrence and James, I've known you guys for a bit, but other new friends. So I actually started in hospitality management in my very early career. So Lawrence, very much relatable in that way. I got out of hospitality management because I had a child for the first time. I was from a small town. We have kids when you're young. I was 23. I was 20. Actually, I think I was 22 maybe. Anyways, it doesn't matter. I was young, fresh out of college, but dropping out of college. and decided that if I was going to have a child at home, I no longer wanted to be up until 1 a.m. being a restaurant manager at these bougie restaurants where people are getting drunk until all hours of the night, right? I want to be home on time and have dinner with my child. So I was obsessed with Guitar Hero and decided to start a Guitar Hero tournament site. At the time, it wasn't as like easy for you to have nowadays, right? You have Friends and Xbox Live, and I don't know, that's actually archaic too, but all the video game things, it was more difficult to actually meet and engage and know who the other person was. And so we started a whole community. And so in that way, I feel like that was like my intro into technology, which it's still bringing nerds together, right? Like it's still people that are really passionate about things that they love doing. Then obviously that shifted into, I became an engineer. I was an engineer for a number of years doing agency life, lots of different life, and did my official engineering career at General Mills. But when I did that, and sort of that trajectory of why I ended my engineering career is that I had taught over 300 women to code in Minneapolis through an organization called Girl Develop It. I didn't realize I love teaching too. So there is like something with this teaching and supporting developers that is like deeply rooted in our veins of DevRel people, I believe. So there's a whole conversation there. Long story short, that actually set me up for a job that, talking about luck, kind of just came my way. They're like, Tessa's been teaching all these women to code. She's a great teacher. She really brings developers together. You should look at her for this role. It was a developer advocate role, but it had some other crazy title like agency and community engineer or something. And that's when I got into DevRel. So I like fell into it and didn't even realize that I'm like, oh, this is what like God created me for. Like I am on this earth to like bring developers together, and whether that be the ones that are playing Guitar Hero or whether that be the ones that are, you know, building the tools that I'm working alongside, like it is my true passion. So I think that sort of took us into that path anyways. How many, dude, I used to do expert. I was like so good, but no injuries. I was like the master. When I do something, I'm like either I don't do it or I'm like all in.
All
So
in, yeah.
I master the skills. Yeah.
Well, there's definitely another common theme of like wanting to help, wanting to teach. Like I think
Exactly.
and I think it has to be kind of like a serve first mentality. I think there's a lot of like perception of getting DevRel to go and be on stage or like be in video. And there's nothing wrong with like building a brand. That's absolutely part of it. I have been very intentional about building my brand throughout my career. But also I think like the root inspiration has to come from like wanting to help people in some way. Help people, bring them together, teach them something, whatever combination of those things. Cap, I know you said like it was a strategic thing for you when you were like couldn't find the role that you wanted off zero. We're doing the DevRel things on your own. Was anyone else like doing the thing intentionally before having the role? And the thing in this case, it could be like speaking at conferences, could be creating content, it could be like answering questions on forums, it could be like a combination of any of those things. Open one for whoever wants to jump in. You can add more details yours too.
Yeah, I was like, I've already gone. I've already answered that.
Anything you want to add to it, like how intentional that was?
So the first conference I went to was NGConf, and the Angular community is just like phenomenal. And I'm watching just these amazing speakers on stage. And I was like, I'm going to be on a stage one day. I don't care. Like that is going to be something that I do. And I applied to, it was RxJS Live. That was my first conference that I spoke at. And yeah, I don't know. It takes a lot of guts to do a lot of the things that like put you in front of people. And I've done a lot of meetups where I've coached first-time speakers for meetups because I need speakers and would you like to speak? And they're like, I've never done this before. And so it's kind of really fun to like get people in and then they realize, oh, I really love this. And then they come back to me a year later and they're like, since that meetup that you had me speak at, I've done 6. And I'm like, that's amazing. So yeah, it's just like really fun to like see others doing the thing that makes them happy.
That's something that, like, speaking of kind of like what is DevRel and the responsibilities and things like that, like one thing that I've always loved to do at any company that I've worked for is help the engineers give their first talks. whether it's on like a virtual event or in-person conference or a meetup. And that can look like a lot of different things depending on their comfort level. Like it could just be helping them submit this to the CFP. It could be helping them practice their talk and work on their slides. It could also be that I'm on stage with them and I do kind of the intro and the wrap up and allow them to focus on the technical mid bits. Because I think that's like another form of like not only getting other people to do it who maybe want to create content or speak, but also like people who are building the products to feel confident and excited to like go share their stuff, but without it kind of totally taking all of their time. Like they still need to be engineers. They still have to focus on that. So like taking away all of that other stuff and giving them that confidence, like that's something that I absolutely love to do. So I love that like you do that too, Cap. Like it's another form of, I think Lawrence, you were talking about, right? Like just seeing people have those like moments of like, oh, I can do this, right? That can be either technically like, oh, I can code this, but it could also be like, oh, I can talk to people about this. Like, this is awesome. I love that so much, especially when like nobody knows I was a part of it. That's my favorite, is like giving them all the credit and having them be the ones on the stage and getting all the kudos and like, and me just knowing like I got to be like a support, like one of the little support structures for that.
I mean, and that like that content's the content that like actually works too, because they're passionate about the product. They work on the product day to day. They can speak to how it's built, why they made certain decisions. And like developers love that. So when they can pry in like the Q&A to those conversations, it's like, it's true gold, really.
Yeah, for sure.
So many good things there. Also, hack, especially, I'll come to you, Lawrence, but a hack, if you lead a DevRel team, for example, a lot of the challenges that you'll see is like, you're like a very small team, or you're like head of developer experience like I am, and I'm one person. But a hack for that is to train other people in the organization in different roles to be able to produce content. Because a lot of engineers have a bunch of cool, crazy shit that they do and learn that's super valuable for the community. They also potentially already have an interest in sharing that stuff and or have an interest in building a brand. And so to be able to share that with them benefits them. It also then benefits the company, the team, whatever, because you can scale out the amount of content that you can create. That's also super valuable.
100%.
Lawrence, what were
and
you?
You can learn faster because you can read their stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, selfishly. Yeah. What's up, Lawrence?
Yeah, just a quick blurb on doing the thing before you get the title, because I've had so many people ask me, like, how do you become a developer relations engineer? How do you become a developer advocate? And they're looking for this long list and steps 1 through 10. And I usually say, get involved in community and just get started. Where community for me is not this buzzword. It's literally that. It's people communing with people, people interacting with people, helping other people, and just getting started with whatever feels comfortable for you, because so much of what we do has a cumulative effect. There's a brilliant young lady. Her name is Jess Quick, and she completely redid my resume for free when I was going for a full stack position at FedEx, and I got that job. Well, she did that because she's married to James, but also James and I were going to community events together. It's called Code Connector, codeconnector.io. Look it up. Shameless plug. We were in that meetup together. I showed up consistently. I was contributing. I was a regular face. Wasn't some big social media personality or anything like that. Just a guy who kept showing up. And that help inspired me to want to help others. And so I'm giving a little advice, even in my little junior and first role. What I know, I can pass that on to somebody. Then I thought, there's a more efficient way of doing this. And so I started making videos. So I can say, oh, just check this video or that video. That's where I started on Instagram. I found a bigger audience on TikTok. That's why I went to TikTok. I met Scott Hanselman from Microsoft on TikTok, which is how I ended up getting invited to Microsoft Build. I interacted with Anthony Mays on TikTok and Twitter, which is how I got invited to speak at Render ATL. So now I have 2 major conference talks, which were top of my resume when I applied for my DevRel position at Vaden, summer 2023. So all of these things build on each other. But for me, and hopefully for others, it starts with, do you have actual interest in other people? The whole empathy thing, again, not a buzzword. Do you care about folks? Do you want to see folks win in any area? It could be life, it could be career, it could be your favorite JavaScript framework, whatever it is. Do you actually have a heart to help other people? If you do, there's probably a space for you here.
No, so many good things in that. Amari said, I'm here for it. And I 100% agree. Like one of the things that comes to mind for me is this is not just a DevRel specific thing. Like if you want a job, if you've already been doing that thing, you're much more qualified for that job. You know what I mean? And selfishly, so my best friend went to Harvard. His other brother went to Harvard. He married someone and went to MIT. His sister went to Harvard, married an MIT grad. The smartest family, like my point is, like smartest family by far that I've ever met. And I remember he went to a summer camp in Andover. I don't know if was that something you ever did, Lawrence? No, okay. I didn't know if we had talked about that.
Anything in Martha's Vineyard, nothing in Andover.
Okay. But he went to like a camp over the summer, and he came back, and we were taking physics together junior year, and he had basically taken physics over the summer. And so like very selfishly or like stubborn, I don't know what the word is, like I was super jealous of like, you just know all this stuff and now you don't have to like do anything. But I think that's true with anything, right? Like if you want a job and they do X on the job, you could go and try to do that thing or like learn that thing beforehand and try to build those skills. And nothing is more true than one, being a developer and or just DevRel in general. Like there's nothing stopping any of us from creating content. And I think one of the biggest hurdles is just realizing that you have something to offer. No matter how much you know or don't know, somebody doesn't know things that you know, and so you have something to offer. But one of the drawbacks is it's intimidating mentally. Like we think about bigger things, like putting ourselves on videos, being on stage, Cap. And one of the things, by the way, for all of you to think about that I want to ask you in a second is, what is one goal you had in DevRel that you've since accomplished? What's like highlight thing that you've accomplished? Think about that. We'll come back to it. But for now, well, I shouldn't have caveat, or I shouldn't have changed because now I lost my thought. Doing the thing. Oh, what is one hurdle that you think you had to overcome? Were you scared to be on stage? Were you scared to put yourself in a video? Were you scared of the way you talk? Were you scared of how you write? Were you nervous about being judged? What was a hurdle that you had to come over and to kind of putting yourself out there? Because so much of DevRel is that aspect of just putting yourself out there. It could be also being introverted, Lawrence, which, by the way, a ton of people who are in DevRel and do public speaking consider themselves to be, I actually don't know the difference, like technically between shy and introverted, but like either of those two, I think a lot of people would throw themselves in this category. So anyone have like a something they had to overcome to kind of put themselves out there?
I mean, I can share, like, it's actually almost the opposite. Like, it was much easier for me. So my first conference talks were at academic conferences. So I would submit papers, they'd get accepted, and then you'd go and you'd give the conference, or you'd give the talk. And it's just kind of like a different, like, because that talk is backed by research that was peer reviewed and accepted, it was easier to have confidence to give the talk because it was already peer reviewed and accepted by that conference, right? And so like it's already been vetted in a sense. It's actually been harder like today to do like live streams where I'm live coding because I just realized this like 2 months ago, this internal like assignment of me now as a teacher, and that I should, and with the title that I have and the years of experience that I have, that I should know. And so it's actually scarier for me to live stream now because I'm like, I won't know. There's like, that's the point of live streaming for me, is to do things I don't know about. So I've been doing more of that lately so that I can kind of get rid of that newfound fear because I don't know a lot of things, and that's totally fine. And I'm comfortable with that. But I had this like weird idea that like, I'm not allowed to not know at this point in my career. And so it was almost kind of like a flip thing, and something that like I try to tell people that I'm mentoring in giving their first talks, and that I'm trying to tell myself now, is like 99.999% of the time, your audience is not there to catch you on something you're doing wrong. They're not there to try to prove that you don't know something. They're there because they're interested in the topic, or they want to learn, or whatever. Or maybe they're there because they happen to be in that room and they're not even paying attention, right? Which, you know, good and bad. But like, my point is like, no one is sitting there like, oh, I'm going to ask this really hard question just to trip them up and prove that they don't know what they're talking. No one's doing that. And if they are, that's sad for them. Like, it has nothing to do with you. So it's like, that would be the advice that I give someone early in career. But like, for some reason, mine is flipped. Like, I'm giving myself that advice now, which is maybe advice also, like, just because you've been doing it for 17 years doesn't mean it's still just, you know, like, it's easy for me to give up and give a talk, but I have that like internal fear of like not knowing, like, yeah, just like this title I've given myself internally, and not the title like honors, but like the bar that I've set for myself, that I'm like, wait a minute, that bar is imaginary.
Yeah. I think especially from a developer's perspective,
Yeah.
the more we watch live streams, the more we realize like, yeah, there are people that are really good and know more than others, but like we're all still kind of
Yeah,
regular people
exactly.
just doing our best.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Amari also said in the comments, it's a lot harder with unscripted content. I think that's something that is absolutely
sure.
true. And I think would definitely relate with a lot of people. Anyone else have like a hurdle, something that you had to like think about or like overcome? Yeah, Tessa.
I do. And it was funny when you said that. And I'm saying this with grace and like all the humbleness possible. But I wanted to immediately be like, no, I was made for this. Because I do feel like that. I feel like I was made for this, you know? But I will say there's still a lot of imposter syndrome that went into every single content creation, right? Is this exactly how I should be wording it? Because developers are so opinionated. Like, who's going to pick it apart? And I definitely had to get over the like comments and picking it apart thing. But I would say the thing that I actually had to like jump over a hurdle, and I was thankful for my previous career, which Lawrence, you can probably relate, right? Is like being in business management, you learn a lot about business and how businesses have to operate. And I think the thing in DevRel is that I always joke that I should have been an attorney because I'm very much like the achiever. And so I'm like, did I win or did I lose? Like, I want to know if I won or I lost. And so in DevRel, like, oh, good luck trying to figure out if you won. And what does it even mean to win, right? A whole bunch of developers are in your network and your circle, but did that actually come to fruition? And so I got obsessed with metrics, like just absolutely obsessed with metrics and data and understanding the data and really diving into what makes an OKR, what makes a key result, why do companies care about it, what are company objectives. And so anyone who's probably read my content over the number of years probably knows that that's exactly the hurdle that I jumped over, because I talk about it so much, because I really do feel that in order for companies to continue to invest in DevRel and to continue to see the value, we have to report all that back. Like, yes, we are out there building relationships that can be difficult to track. But for me, that was the hurdle. Is I was like, no, I'm going to find a way. And honestly, I'm thankful for it because it's been incredibly lucrative for my career. So I think that was my hurdle.
I won't talk long, but I just really quick want to say, I'm going to find a way, I think, is something that we probably all feel. And that's part of, I think, DevRel. But sorry, Kat.
No. I just want to like condone the Tessa. When you first like hear that, you're like, no, I was made for this. Like, I love that confidence. That's really awesome.
Maybe it's a little too much confidence, but
no, I love it. I love it. Yeah.
I think we should be much more comfortable saying things that feel right for us, but like you also acknowledge like there are challenges that come with that. Like when I get on stage, I feel like I'm made for the stage. That's how I feel. Like that's what it is. That doesn't mean that I don't prep. That doesn't mean that I don't get nervous beforehand. It doesn't mean that like I'm not literally shaking before I go on stage. Still every time, like that never goes away from me. But when I get on stage, I feel like I'm in my happy place. Like that's where I'm supposed to be.
That's cool.
I love that.
So I had a hurdle. I definitely had a hurdle because I was hired as a developer advocate in July 2023. By the end of my 90 days, I had a serious issue with task completion. Which for a busybody like me feels so antithetical to everything in my heart. And so I get busy. I do things. And this was a little late, or this had to be pushed back a day. And it kept happening. We had to have a little sit down, a one-on-one. And it came down to, this was a new era of working for me that I wasn't used to since my restaurant days, which I mentally really put behind me. Like, I'm not doing that anymore. And it came down to task switching, which I think is kind of one of our themes today. I'm coming from a traditional engineering environment. 2-week sprint. Here's your tasks. Here's your stories. Have those done. Next 2 weeks. Here's your tasks. Like, it's almost robotic. And then you come into DevRel where there's things due tomorrow, next week, next month, and 3 months from now, all at the same time. And I had no system for working it out. And so I did a little research. I'm like, is it just me? I know I'm a little wacky, but I'm not just like not made for this. Something wrong with me? Come to find out, people have researched this. I found someone at University of UC Irvine, Gloria Mark, who did a whole study and found that when you switch tasks that involve a cognitive load, it can take as long as 23 minutes to get back to your focus state. Just one switch. So we switch If you switch 3 times in one day, you've easily lost an hour, hypothetically. Like, all right, so I'm not crazy. I just need a system. And I worked very diligently to figure out some sort of a system that will allow me to keep track of what has to get done right now versus what I can work on a little bit over a period of time. And then also looking at how to schedule my days such that I had a chance to get into flow state, because it takes 20 minutes to get into focus per study, right? That's just one study, anecdotal. But if that is even true, I need to schedule at least an hour, hour and a half, maybe 2 hours, whether it's the blog post or I'm going to do the script, maybe start recording this video or whatever else the thing is. I have to schedule accordingly to allow myself to get the full me into the task. But that was a bump. That was a major, major bump for me.
That's a really good one, Lawrence.
I was just going to say, thank you for that. I need that in my business right now. I'm sitting here like, why can't I get all this stuff done for all my clients? And I'm like, oh yeah, that's why.
Yeah.
Lawrence just told me why.
You
And
know
it's
what
funny
it was for
because
me? I'm sorry.
No, go.
I was going to say, so what I ended up doing, in addition to my Google Calendar, which I live by my Google Calendar today, everything is on the calendar. If it's not on the calendar, it doesn't exist. So if I tell you I'm going to 12 o'clock for lunch tomorrow, ask me later on, is it on your calendar? Because if it's not, I'm not going to be there. I live by my calendar. The second thing I did was analog. Obviously, I'm old school. I'm Gen X. We like pen and paper, physical things. I have a giant whiteboard. You guys can't see it. A giant whiteboard behind my desk with 3 columns. One says today, one says this week, one says long term. Today gets updated every night. What I have to do tomorrow, have to, not could, but have to do tomorrow, it goes in today. Things that have to get done this week stays in the this week column. And as things get crossed off to today, I'm moving from the this week to the today. Anything more long-term, like, hey, I'm speaking at XYZ conference in April, I'll put that on the long term and I'll just review it once a week. So maybe I'm not doing it right now, but at least it's not just out of sight, out of mind. And it's all right there. And it's so easy to maintain. It costs me absolutely zero, no subscription, no junk mail because I signed up to some service. It works for me. Now, the point is not to buy a whiteboard. The point is what Tess was saying, and I think Sarah said, well, you got to find what works for you. And that's a huge part of this job. You have to have that gene, that bone that says, I'm going to figure out a freaking way. I think there was a football coach that said, find a way or make a way, because not everything's going to be delineated for you. And you might not even have a manager that recognizes how much they are at ease time switching or time box switching, as opposed to you being the engineer turned DevRel might not have that skill or ability whatsoever. So you have to look out for it for yourself. And then when it's not working, be able to institute something to fix that. That's your first engineering problem quite often. How do I switch tasks and get everything done on time and early?
I'll say too, like, something that I don't think is recognized within the rest of the company often is DevRel is really a combination of engineering and marketing. And so depending on where you're sitting, like right now I'm sitting under marketing, and I find that a lot of the other more traditional marketing folks don't understand why the context switch matters that much, because I need to be in code. That's at least 20 minutes to get into my flow state, right? Whereas like if I'm just reviewing a blog post, I can actually review a page of it and then come back later, right? But like debugging some code, I can't just do that for 20 minutes, leave, come back, leave, come back. And so I think that like managing expectations outward also. I'll say too, like I specifically thought about joining DevRel because I'm ADHD and I'm like, I need to context switch. Like if I have one task for 2 weeks, I will go crazy. So I need to have 10 different tasks. But to Lawrence's point, what I do, I've tried every method under the sun for myself. And this is not a recommendation for everyone. For myself, it's one piece of paper. And every evening, I remake the list. And I actually put it on a new piece of paper, and I get these notebook things that I just rip off and I throw away immediately. Right. And I actually like burn them and use them. And that's why I use paper, to try to not kill everything. But like, I have to do that. And I can't do the multiple. I've tried the like urgent and important, not urgent, not important. Even just the 3 columns for me, it's too much context, but just a very simple list. Yes. I have to keep that.
Ivy Lee method. That's actually what that's called. If I don't know if you heard of the Ivy League method or that term for it. Yeah. So if anyone wants to actually Google, a story behind sort of what Sarah just said, it's basically the idea of 6 items that you put on a prioritized list every day. So it's in order. So there's no like deflection of a task you don't want to do. It's like, you got to do that one first.
All right, we've got like 5 minutes left. I'm going to do 2 rapid fire questions. I know it goes by so fast. 2 rapid fire questions. The second one that I'll still let you think about is like, what was the goal you had and what was the accomplishment? Like, what was the goal that you accomplished in DevRel area? But the question for now is, in your role or what you do right now, what category of DevRel, whether it be community, speaking, content, teaching, feedback, which one is shows up most prevalently for you on a day-to-day or like weekly basis? So like just category, like a 1-sentence explainer about what you do with that thing.
Educational content. I think it's explanatory.
Explains itself. Okay.
Yeah.
What platforms? Like blog posts, videos?
But start with blog posts because it's easier to work asynchronously and give feedback. And then you have a rich data source to then create long form videos, short form videos, live streams, etc.
Cool. Love it. Who's next?
I'll go next. So actually, my company went through a round of layoffs a week and a half ago, and so I am currently working for me. Prior to that layoff, my primary content was in video form, so YouTube videos and blog posts. That was the majority of it. Maybe a conference or meetup talk once a month, but mostly that. But currently, I'm doing short form video on TikTok and, of course, hanging out on Twitter all the time. So I think I live on Twitter, for better or worse.
Lawrence, apparently we have some catching up to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did not.
I noticed that.
You know how I am.
I didn't. Okay. All right. We got to talk.
We got to talk.
I'll go next. Events, meeting devs where they are, whether it's online, in person, get people together and learn together.
Love it. What's the next 2 events that are top of mind for you?
Laracon EU and the Versailles Amsterdam meetup.
Sick.
It's all happening next week, so let's go.
Love it. Tessa, what about you?
I've been trying to like think about how I summarize this. Honestly, like the strategy, because I do so many like developer journey and audits and then reform that into like, hey, this is what it should look like. So I think it's like that sort of essence of what a developer needs in their experience and making it better. Yeah.
Just such a missing part, I would say. Like for a
So
lot of the
many
reasons that we
opportunities.
could have a whole discussion around. Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Goal and tied accomplishment to it and the DevRel ecosystem.
I always wanted to publish books, and I've published, I don't know, a few with Wiley and Sons. It's been a couple years now since the last book I published, but yeah, that was fun.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
I'll go next. So currently I'm working on a open source program at Versailles to like support the greater open source community. So a big goal of mine is just to like research the open source community and like, especially like the people who are like in it, the maintainers, the contributors, and just like understand what they want and what they need and do that for them.
Love that.
I'll go
Essence
next.
of
So I had some smaller goals around social media that we did accomplish. So that was a happy moment. But the personal goal I really wanted was to convince, if you will, or influence at least one person or team to adopt our technologies and get a big win from it. For those who don't know, I work for Vaadin. They make full stack Java frameworks. That's not the hottest thing flying off the shelf. So I have my work cut out for me. And I'm happy to share that at the Connect Tech conference in Atlanta, I presented one of our frameworks. Had a nice sized audience. By the next time I was in Atlanta, which was a few months later for DevNexus, a young man came to the booth with his laptop and showed me something he built on the technology he learned about from me, and he was able to sell that app to a client. He said, I never knew I could actually build a true, robust, full stack application in just Java. This is blowing my mind. Thank you. So that felt great.
That's
I was
cool.
ready to go home. I was done.
Those are
That's
the moments.
Love
amazing.
it. That's
Name is
awesome.
Those are
Harold.
the
On
moments.
LinkedIn somewhere if you want to verify that.
One tip for you if you're not doing it is document that somehow.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
Write that down, take a picture of it, whatever. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yep.
Yeah.
Tessa, I think you're last.
Yeah. I thought that it was going to be giving a keynote, and then I delivered a keynote and I was like, that's not much different than a normal talk. So I don't know, like it felt like the goal was too easy. And so now that I'm on the other side of it, I didn't realize it was a goal, but like at Snapchat, like I did some freaking amazing work. Like it was just like, I can't even like explain how great it was. And like just seeing a vision of DevRel and like improving the developer experience, bringing the community together, driving the growth. And it was just this perfect, like I think exemplification of like how DevRel can really execute and bring a business value. And so honestly, like that's mine. Although it got cut short, which I think that's why I was so darn sad is I'm like, oh, I got 9 more months of growth before we really hit it. And I lost that with the layoff, but such is life. I'm still super proud of everything that I accomplished, especially in an enterprise space, which makes it a lot harder, as Lawrence alluded to, right? Java is very much in that similar vein too. So less forgiving developers.
Absolutely. I wish we had infinity more time because we could do this
Same.
forever and take this so many different ways. For what it's worth, I want to do more of this type of thing, like in the DevRel space. I'm piggybacking / just contributing to Tessa's community. So if you have ideas or people you'd like to see, people you'd like to talk to, or suggestions from people in the chat or people in the panel, let us know. Thank you all for joining us. I've had a blast. I'm blessed to call you all my friends and have you join to talk today. Tessa, is there anything you want to say just to close out?
Yeah, if you join let me talk correctly. hub.built4.dev. There is a roundtable discussion that I'm going to facilitate. If anyone of you are available, I don't know if you are because we're all have tight calendars, but I will be there to host. So if anyone just wants to talk about responsibilities, questions, ask about DevRel, I'll be there for the next hour. So also eating my lunch, which my husband was trying to bring in the door, and I'm like, not yet.
Talk about balancing responsibilities.
DevRel. Exactly, right.
Cool. Well,
All
Thank
right.
I don't have the power to hit the end button, so
Thanks,
I
y'all.
do.
everyone.
Okay.